is like a really big event for me. Just a word or two. So I'm Ann Fisher-Wirth. I'm one of the co-editors of this new anthology. It's the follow-up volume to the earlier Ecopoetry Anthology, which came out in 2013. The Ecopoetry Anthology has 625 pages of nature and eco-poetry from Walt Whitman to 1960. But obviously, time has continued along. And then poetry up to about 2010. So there's been so much new eco-poetry since 2010 that Laura-Gray Street and I asked Trinity University Press, can we please do another volume? And they said, yeah, sure. So 2 years ago we started working on this. This only has poets who were not in the first volume, and it only has poems that were written and or published since 2010. So it's new stuff. It's very diverse. It's very kind of exciting. I love this book. The cover was a winner. I'm not responsible for the cover, so I can just brag on it. I think it's just absolutely gorgeous. So what we're going to do, I'm so lucky to have 8 poets who were willing to be here tonight, all of whom have worked in the book. Some of them traveled a considerable distance to be here. Each of them is going to read one of the poems that they have in the book, and then one poem by somebody else. Now, you will see that we are mostly white and mostly female. So I've asked everybody to choose a poem that is different from who they are so that we have, more kind of range. And I'm going to start out by breaking my own rule and reading a short poem by Sophie Clark. This is because I'm from California. As you know, California just suffered the incredible fires. And this is a little poem called Tender, which is about one of the fires in California. Tender. I spent late morning weeping with the news. A black bear with burnt paws is euthanized along the latest wildfire's newest edge. It was crawling on its forearms, seeking a place to rest. I Google more. Reports leak out. The bear had bedded down behind a house below a pine to lick its paws. In hours before its end, officials named it Tenderfoot. The Sun report just tender. Later, I will teach a class where we'll discuss the lengths of lines in poems. I'll say a sonnet is a little song to hold a thing that otherwise cannot be held. A lonely thing, a death, a bear. I love that poem. Let me just add before we forget that after the reading there is cake to be had in the back, and we will all be lined up signing copies of books. So thank you Square Books once again for, this is the official launch besides the launch at IWP, so you were here at the very beginning of the life of this book. Thanks so much. So just go. Yeah, now I better be ordered. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, friends. Oh, thank you so much, Anne and Laura-Gray, for making this happen. The first edition is the reason I came to Oxford, and that's a longer story I'll tell you later. I'm Stacey Balkan. I'm starting with Victoria Chang's The Ocean. It's a downer, but it's beautiful. The Ocean. The ocean died on August 21st, 2017. When I didn't jump from the ship. Instead, I dragged the door shut and pulled up the safety latch. The water in my body wanted to pour into the ocean, and I imagined myself being washed by the water, my body separating into the droplets it always was. I could feel the salt on my neck for days. A woman I once knew leapt out of the window to her death. The difference was she was being chased. Some scientists say the ocean is warming. Some say the ocean has hypoxic areas with no oxygen. Even water has a hierarchy. A child's death is worse than a woman's death unless the woman who died was the mother of the child and the only parent. the woman who died was the mother of an adult, it is merely a part of life. If both mother and daughter die together, it is a shame. If a whole family dies, it is a catastrophe. What will we call a whole ocean's death? Peace. That's Victoria Chang, whose voice I'm honored to bring into this room. My own poem in this anthology is called The Water, the Truth, the Water. And it's a contrapuntal poem, so you're going to hear it a couple different ways. And it begins by situating you at a pool located less than 500 feet from the former site of the Wynwood Swim Club in Piscataway, New Jersey, is the chemical ponds used by Union Carbide during the active phase of plant operation. I go only as far as I dare, a full-grown possum girl, through the familiar neighborhood, past the no trespassing signs behind the pool. A stream runs through and collapsed razor wire squares the chemical pond. It's 2018 and backhoes have torn at it. Have torn at my shiver, my urge to wade in. The earth scraped, the residue stuck to my insides. I can't rely on memory or ask my dead. The satellite maps refresh 1,000 miles away. Tomorrow, I'll zoom close to see the diving board sticking out, pale tongue wrapping the deep end. We count the steps from swimming pool to waste pond. 100 muddy paces between chlorine and acetone as children swam in both and the stream. My body plunging to the bottom. Branches where I hang by the strength of my storyteller tail. The map makes it seem farther. I want to know why I keep scouring. Nobody ever believed me, but the water never recedes. I go only as far as I dare through the familiar neighborhood behind the pool. Collapsed razor wire squares the chemical pond. My shiver, my urge to wade in, to my insides. I can't rely on or ask my dead 1,000 miles away. To see the diving board sticking out the deep end, we count the steps. 100 muddy paces between chlorine and acetone as the stream branches where I hang by the map. I want to know why no one ever believed me. A full-grown possum girl, past the no trespassing sign, a stream runs through, and it's 2018, and backhoes have torn at the earth, scraped the residue, stuck memory. The satellite's maps refresh tomorrow. I'll zoom close, pale tongue lapping from swimming pool to waste pond. Children swam in both, and my body plunging to the bottom. The strength of my storyteller tale. I keep scouring, but the water never recedes. Thank you.
Herself as an American poet with British and Caribbean background. And I chose her poem in part because I've had the good fortune of publishing her a few times in Poetry South, and I really love her work. The title of the poem is Who's to Say My Body Is Not All the World, after Francine Jane Harris. Is there a wetland inside me, an ecosystem all its own? So many species of chlorophyll-filled flora and doe-like fauna living symbiotically within some recess of my body. Who is to say I am not Mother Earth, home to lizard and toad, home to slickback catfish that swim and wriggle upon the land? Who's to say my big brown body is not the whole world, with its hemisphere, equator, its longitude and latitude, its mighty meridian? Who is to say no wild things roam in me? Who is to say I'm not a part wolf, or I am not the valley's green, which hunchback buffalo now graze as its numbers grow. Just briefly, my poem, two poems in this anthology are from a series that I think of as the Intergalactic Traveler poems. I decided I needed to shake up my voice and write from a different persona and pick as far away as I could think of. So this is the Intergalactic Traveler in Springtime. It is always a surprise, this renewal of green shoots in spring, the explosion of cherry blossoms and daffodils, snakes, bees, and worms emerging from hibernation. Surely there are other planets that spin on a tilted axis. Surely all heavenly bodies maintain some cycle of seasons, fast or slow, changing in an instant, or ebbing and flowing over eons. And yet, the profusion of springtime never ceases to amaze and remind of the delicate balance, the equilibrium sustaining the water cycle, weather patterns, migrating birds, seeds sprouting, gardens and fields to provide sustenance, even the excess of springtime, the buzzing of insects, the profusion of pollen, earthlings with hay fever and March madness, which only a few degrees warmer or colder will throw completely out of whack. Next is Al Fador.
Hey everyone, I am going to be reading first from just a selection from a very long poem by Brian Teare called Toxics Release Inventory. I stand just outside the scant light a house casts off. Its steady edge is the limit between my body's flesh and the world's. The limit is learned, and gender teaches us where to put it if race doesn't. White queer boy, I marry the world because, as a child pressing against it, I feel no limits to flesh, just the crush of pine needles and sticky resin, the white commonplace of feeling safe I seek out when safety fails me. Inside, even then, I can accept the violence that arises from being a mammal, our bloody given bodies of glands and hormones, our lust and fucking, the ways we change as we age and die. But I hate what happens inside the house, the hierarchies and made fake limits of family life enforced by Christ and power, the petty moral legalese peddled by people who try to shame my love for the flesh of the world whose flesh I share. That is why I walk out of everywhere. That is Toxic Releases Inventory by Brian Teare, and I will now be reading my poem Bullfrog. There is one important part in Bullfrog that requires a little bit of audience participation. When I say the word, after I say the word slap, and after I say the word feet, I would like everyone to either sort of stomp your feet like this, or if you'd rather sort of like pat your lap. So let's try it, all right? Slap, feet. All right, perfect. So it's coming in the middle when you're out for it. This is Bullfrog. I've swallowed a bowl of air. I'm washing my insides with music. I do this just for you. Resonate with the mellow slap of your feet. I'm coaching the tight-lipped flowers, bellowing under your window, a jukebox of desperation made entirely of noise. Oh, lovely one. Look, I'm terrestrial now. I've perfected 1,000 swollen imitations of the ripe loving mood.
Hey everybody, I'm so happy to be here, and I want to say Anne Fisher-Wirth worked so hard on this beautiful anthology just out of love for poetry and the planet, and we're so grateful for your efforts, Anne. It's really a truly beautiful book.
Thank you.
So I'm going to read a poem by Sean Hill, and I picked this one because he initially seems to be writing about a bird, but it becomes a metaphor. So the bird he's writing about is the white-headed woodpecker, which is a native to the state of Washington. And in the same region where this bird is, there is a kind of a forgotten historical incident, and he weaves them together in this poem. I think it's really remarkable. The white-headed woodpecker. Quiet. Given to prying more than pecking, an odd member of her family, lives only in the high pine forest of its western mountains like the Cascades, where I spent an afternoon almost a decade ago in Roslyn, Washington, looking for what I could find of black people who'd migrated from the South almost a century and a quarter prior. The white-headed woodpecker doesn't migrate, and so is found in its home range year-round when it can be found. Roslyn, founded as a coal mining town, drew miners from all over Europe, as far away as Croatia, across the ocean, with opportunities. With their hammering and drilling to extract a living, woodpeckers could also be considered arboreal miners. A habitat, a home range, is where one can feed and house oneself, meet the requirements of life, and propagate. In 1888, those miners from many lands in Roslyn came together to go on strike against the management. And so, from the southern states, a few hundred black miners were recruited with the promise of opportunities in Roslyn, many with families in tow, to break the strike. They faced resentment and armed resistance, left in the dark until their arrival, unwitting scabs. That healing that happens after lacerations or abrasions. Things settled down, as they do sometimes, and eventually blacks and whites entered a union as equals. Black save for a white face and crown and a sliver of white on its wings that flares to a crescent when they spread in flight. The white-headed woodpecker is a study in stark contrasts. Males have a patch of red feathers on the back of their crowns, and I can't help but see blood. It's terrible to read a poem you love and then have to read yours because it's like you're competing, and that was so good. But I wrote this one because, ever since I've lived in Mississippi, which is a long time now, since 2001, I've been obsessed with ruby-throated hummingbirds because, as you probably know, if you're in this room, we are on the migratory path of hummingbirds. So at the end of the summer, they filter down from Canada and North America, and they linger in the states that border the Gulf, fattening up. And so because we get to spend a lot of time with them, I've become really obsessed with them, like almost too much. And I was thinking one day, watching them, that whenever the first hummingbird of summer arrives, and it should be any day now, I hope everyone has their feeders up, it's so exciting. That very first time I see one, I'm always like crazy. But you can never tell when you see the last one. They kind of peter out, and you just don't have like a strict moment of knowing. And it did make me think of a metaphor. So like Sean Hill's with a bird that becomes about something else. Mine is a bird that becomes about something else. And this is a double sonnet. The last hummingbird of summer reveals itself in retrospect. Unlike the first, whose March arrival bade you gasp, hands clasped, like a child actor instructed to show joy. When the last departs for points south, there's no telling and no tell. Well, so what? You know the cycle. In August, they swarm the feeder, all swagger, greedy tussle for sugar water. Suddenly, September, chill tickles your ankles. You reach for long sleeves and you fret. They've left? Not yet. Ear cocked for the symphony's shrinking strings. Then comes a day without a ruby flash. Next day, they're back. Next day, there's one, then none. Or maybe one? From porches, pumpkins grin. Your last had left, and left you uninformed. Kinda, sorta, can I say it? Like menstrual blood. Again between your legs. Your last, perhaps, or next to last, you're no longer very monthly. So unlike your first crimson at 12, it's yes, you are there, God, Annunciation. Well, so what? You know the cycle. Your body's eggy miracle, unneeded now for years. And you hate waste. Why fill and dump and fill again the undrunk sugar water? Enough. Let's progress to whatever season's next. But still, a farewell wouldn't be amiss. The last hummingbird of summer, winging from the feeder, to others, a smooth departure, to you alone, unmistakably dipping its wing.
Which is a book-length poem. There's an excerpt of it in this anthology, and I'm going to read an excerpt of that excerpt. When a star dies, it becomes any number of things, like a black hole or a documentary. The early universe of our skin was remarkably smooth. Now I stand in a rapidly dampening Christina Aguilera tea. The first stars were born of a gravity, my ancestors. Our sky is really the only thing same for me as it was for them, which is a pretty stellar inheritance. I don't know how they make sense of that swell, how they survived long enough to make me, and am sort of at war with sentimentality generally. But that absence of an answer, yet suggestion of meaning, isn't ultimately that different from a poem. So I started reading the stars. That's Tommy Pico. And my poem is called So Attached You Are to Living in the World. Cut off access to the feeding stream, and the water will come instead from below. Will rise and form puddles on the hill, even in dry weather. The pattern of woven and knitted grasses, the plethora of knots worked by wind, like you, it undoes everything it does. Reckless skies, falling trees, horizon floating like algae. You try to see yourself from the outside, where the weather is spinning. You identify with the largest predator, because she never lets you near. Ruthless, unabating in her shyness. Through this unseasonal flowering, the heron keeps spearing tadpoles. You can see her, but you can't get as close as you'd like. You lose track of your mind in the satellite photo. Are you the solitary wood duck, its markings sleeker without the flock? Are you the heron's wet legs? Are you the straight line wind? Are you your own mistake, your own darling? Again and again, you ocean, the marsh, lock the hurricane in the bathtub. You walk straight into the spider's web and close its door behind you.
Hi everyone. I am honored to be here tonight reading with the people I'm reading with, incredible poets. Honored to be in this anthology. Ecopoetry, I feel like, covers everything. And I'm going to start with a poem from Martín Espada called Love Song of the Galapagos Tortoise. I am Lonesome George, the last Galapagos tortoise of Pinta Island. I see Darwin's hairy face on t-shirts and hats, backpacks and mugs. I see the statues. I can read the history books if someone turns the pages. I remember Darwin. I was there the day he landed in the ship named for a dog with floppy ears. He tried to lift me up and strained his groin. He climbed on my saddleback shell and tried to ride me, giggling like a boy on a birthday pony. He slipped off and rolled over in the surf, spitting sand. He watched me plod around in search of cactus to crunch, timing me with a pocket watch. He yelled in my ear to see if I was deaf, and I hissed in his face. He invited my tortoise brothers and sisters to board the Beagle. The crew hauled them up the gangplank as guests of honor. Darwin noted in his journal, young tortoises make excellent soup. Like the pirates and the whalers, the naturalists lick their spoons, soup in their beards, toasting the voyage with glasses of our urine. I am Lonesome George. I crane my leathery neck and hiss at everyone. I tuck my head inside my shell. You call and call my name till I peek out. I am a creature of the tropics who curses the icebergs of December. I groan about my gut, intimidating the curious with a drum roll of flatulence. You feed me the cactus of Pinta Island and pizza from the Jersey Shore. I am afraid of the toaster and dream of Darwin's beard caught in its coils. You are afraid of nothing, as you make waffles jump from the glowing machine. I plod down the road as cars honk behind me, seafarers hungry for soup. You let me steer the car, even though the world is blurry, and you yell in my ear when the other cars cruise like pirate ships through stop signs. I will hiss at the next TV reporter who calls me Lonesome George. This world teems with pirates and naturalists on parade, waving their spoons in the air, craving the delicacy of buttery tortoise flesh. But now I crane my neck to croak the love song of the Galapagos tortoise for you. And you swear I am your Frank Sinatra. I am your Sam Cooke. I sing better than Darwin. And this is my poem in which I noticed the birds again. Melissa, shout out to you for the edit for the end of this poem. In which I noticed the birds again. Today the angels are happy. The heart is a garden, buzzing in early September after a sun-soaked summer, and I'm a tree in a forest. Someone knocks on me like a door that won't open. I'm hard in the places I need to be and soft everywhere else. Buddhism teaches the container is already broken. The heart a sponge wrung dry. I believe it, and a bird testifies. Then another, until even the grasshopper's flappity wing is the net I've cast. If an astronaut cries in orbit, the tears stay in their eyes and they can't see. I watched Sabrina the Teenage Witch with my Hulu Spotify subscription and say, magic. The other week, I found part of an animal jawbone with a couple teeth near my house. Sometimes I feel like a record that always skips in the same place. Capricorn in the sun, Scorpio in the moon, like a hallway in an enchanted castle. When everything's alive, what happens to the dead? Once, my heart slid safe into home. The anthill wasn't destroyed. My time on earth summarized as one in which I've noticed the birds again. Feet paddling underwater, closed eyes drawn like clamshells. I straighten my back, give some air to the cavernous chakra in my chest. Remember Birmingham, Alabama. Star Wars night at the Barons game, fireworks and droids, bee on a wood spoon, view from my friend's bungalow overlooking the city through a clearing in some branches, plants winding up the staircase toward a rainbow flag. Here is the fire, the forest, and the garden. Here are the birds again. I know some of their names. And my friends, the plants, all they do is stand in the backyard and drink the light. They turn the light into sugar. Of course they do. Aimee Nezhukumatathil.
Hi everybody, hello everybody, and oh my goodness, thank you so much, Anne, for not giving up on me. When she was gathering poets together, sometimes my email is just such a hot mess, and I just so appreciate you never gave up, So glad and grateful to be part of this collection. The first poem I'm going to read is by a pal named Roske, and as I read it, I want you to just kind of imagine the speaker of the poem transforming into another animal. And this is called Becoming a Horse. It was dragging my hands along its belly, loosing the bit and wiping the spit from its mouth that made me a snatch of grass in the thing's maw, a fly tasting its ear. It was touching my nose to his that made me know the clover's bloom, my wet eye to his that made me know the long field secrets. But it was putting my heart to the horses that made me know the sorrow of horses, made me forsake my thumbs for the sheen of unshod hooves, and in this way drop my torches, and in this way drop my knives. Feel the small song in my chest swell and my coat glisten and twitch, and my face grow long, and these words cast off at last for the slow, honest tongue of horses. And the one I'm going to read I always say when the phone rings in my classroom, I'll answer and say hi. I can say hi if you want. chic based. I won't, how shall I say, I'm choosing my words carefully. I was on a long search for a beloved teacher of mine. I was thinking of my origin story on origin story for academia, when I kind of was, when all along I just started being interested in the outside world through books and through research and things like that, and it started in 4th grade. This is called Mr. Cass and the Crustaceans. Whales the color of milk have washed ashore in Germany, their stomachs clogged full of plastic and car parts. Imagine the splendor of a creature as big as half a football field, the magnificence of the largest brain of any animal, modern or extinct. I have been trying to locate my 4th grade science teacher for years. Mr. Cass, who gave us each a crawfish he found just past the suburbs of Phoenix, before strip malls licked every good desert with a cold blast of Freon and glass. Mr. Cass, who played soccer with us at recess, who let me check on my wily little snappy crawfish in the plastic blue pool before class started, so I could place my face to the surface of the water and see if it's still scattered alive. I hate to admit how much this meant to me, the only brown girl in the classroom, but I wish I could tell Mr. Cass how I've never stopped checking the waters, all the ponds, the lakes, the sea. And I worry that I've yet to see a sperm whale, except when they beach themselves in coves. How many songs must we hear from the sun-bleached bones of a seabird or whale? If there was anyone on earth who would know this, Mr. Cass, it's you. How even bottle caps found inside a baby albatross corpse can make a tiny ribcage whistle when the ocean wind blows through it just right. I know wherever you are, you'd weep if you heard this sad, soft music. I think of how you first taught us kids to listen to water, and I'm so grateful, Mr. Cass, for each story in its song. Thank you so much. And last but not least, we have Leona Sevick.
About reading last until Beth Ann said, "You're closing us." Many thanks to Square Books and to the Oxford Conference for the book, to Jimmy, and especially to Anna Fisher-Wirth, who years ago, lifetimes ago, I met when we were both Willie Keller scholars. And she's always been very kind to me. So. The first poem I'll read is by my friend Ariana Benson. And this is her title poem from her book, Black Pastoral. There is a kind of poetry in a turning that leaves a body redder than before. Golden drupes ripen, orchards flush rouge. Sweetness curls the blades of leaves that once sprouted green. Fall confetti rains, red herrings, in pretend surrender, showers of bleeding white flags. Yes, even the trees play possum when a cold force looms larger than they. They freeze. They freeze. Mine stone from wood, statue themselves like deer. Enter the fledgling buck. See him, just barely, a tawny smudge blinking back at you through the landscape static. His molting crown, one shredded antler, a tree in its own visceral autumn. The other, a felled trunk at rest in the ashen grass. Enter the black boy. See his boots leave little coffin prints in the ground. What lingers in the foam of his wake. They stand together, this boy, this deer, each a lone solstice removed from fawnhood, from his spring pink and summer-blushed self. The memories of home live only in the glossy black of the other's eyes. They reminisce for a moment in unblinking silence. Then see the boy's tiny hands, dotted with birch knot knuckles, his womb smooth, palms split along umber fault lines, as they meet to cradle the lost horn and turn it upright in the frost, making sapling of skeleton. Now hear a distant whistling, a herd of cocked rods dragging like fingernails over the shivering ground, its goose-bumped skin. See our subjects assume the position of hibernation, of stagnant and threatless sleep, praying they will awaken when the white recedes. They learned in leaving the red of their mothers the danger of hound-snouted men who, upon cornering a creature dark with life, ponder the taste of metal-peppered flesh. They know to freeze, to still their limbs, wait for the melt, for the trees to weep the winter out. The silent sobs, a prelude to the red, not of end, but of moss, of possibility. We should all buy her book. And my poem is, I think, the only poem I've ever written about Mississippi. It's called Fallout. Following the light, their golden faces are, by sundown, heavy and low with cares. Still, I can't tear myself away, not now. You'd say, do it. Run from this bright, hot porch, this lovely field of sunflowers mocking you with their likeness, with their sacrifice. Mornings they are young and fresh, their tiny florets dripping dew, while threaded roots finger delta soil, seeking copper and zinc, drawing them up and into leaves and stalks. They hold it all, mouths cupping poisons unseen by the casual observer. In Fukushima, scientists planted fields of them, delighting villagers until others came and cut them down, toted away polluted carcasses. You'd say, I can't be someone else's medicine. Watch me. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, everybody, for being here. Please remember there's cake, there's books to buy, and there's all of us to sign them. So again, thank you so much, and thanks to the poets, Square Books, OCD, Jimmy, everybody who helped make this possible, and my beloved co-editor, Laura-Gray Street, who is at the moment in Lynchburg, Virginia.